From folklore and fairies
to monsters and mysteries, it came from the Maritimes. To summon my co-host, you need to say her name 3 times. Chelsea, Chelsea, Chelsea.
I'm here. He's entitled to one good scare. My co-host, Evan.
Hi everyone, and welcome to It Came From The Maritimes. Today's topic are the familial phantoms, which comprise the Uniacke Estate ghosts. As a warning, this episode discusses death, which is a topic that's hard to avoid when discussing ghosts.
That's it. You generally need one to get the other.
It's true. So, the Mount Uniacke Estate is named for its former resident, Richard John Uniacke. Have you learned about him much, Chelsea?
So I went to the Uniacke Estate years ago, but it was probably over 15 years ago for a tour, and I wandered the grounds. Beautiful property.
Yeah.
But I don't know many details, so I'm excited to learn.
That's the thing, yeah. I know I went on a field trip there. I think I talked about this some on the Nova Scotia Giants episode, but I think I went there around the same time I went to the Anna Swan Museum, so I thought that the Uniacke family were all giant. So this was kind of a nice little review of history for me.
Hey, I'm sure they were giants amongst their trades and whatnot.
They were a big deal because Richard John Uniacke was the Attorney General from Nova Scotia at the time, and this was his summer home, and it was where he and his family spent a considerable amount of time. It was considered prime real estate at the time because it was along the stagecoach trail between Halifax and Windsor. And now it's off an exit on the 101 near Upper Sackville.
Hey, no hating on Sackville. We have family there.
We do. So the family started staying on the property in the 1790s, likely on the farmhouse. And then Uniacke, who was interested in farming, attempted to grow crops as well as raise animals on the property. From what I understand, the land wasn't actually that great for growing crops, so he had not that much luck doing that. Starting in 1813 and completed in 1815, they built a house, along with many outbuildings, including barns, a coach house, a wash house, a bath, which is apparently different from a wash house, a guest house, a privy, a hothouse, which I think might have been kind of like a greenhouse, a caretaker's house, an ice house, and then a boathouse by the lake.
So many different houses.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. They were stylized after Irish country estates, which makes sense because Uniacke was born in Ireland, and it said that some of the oak trees on the property were grown from acorns that he took from his home country. Uniacke enjoyed his time there, and his family spent much of his later life there during his semi-retired years. You know, haven't talked about any ghosts yet, obviously, but I want to give a little background about what's going on there, who the people are, or I guess who the estate is named after.
Always important.
Exactly. So now, you're probably thinking, you're listening to a podcast like this, where are the ghosts?
Well, I actually only wanted to learn about the history of the house, so I'll be tapping out from here.
That's fair. If you look up ghosts of the property, there's 2 main ghosts, and then some other kind of ghosts that pop up here and there. If you go in October, then they might actually have some ghost tours, and sometimes they have events around that, so you can look at their website to find that. The first ghost that you often find mentioned is Martha Uniacke, who was Richard Uniacke's wife. She passed in 1803, so it was actually prior to the construction of the buildings on the estate. She had 11 children with Richard Uniacke, and at the time of her death, 3 of them were under 10 years old. It is said that Richard Uniacke loved his wife dearly and would set off on the anniversary of her death for what he said were consideration of affairs little connected to this world.
Oh, that's so sad but sweet.
Yeah. There is no clear answer as to why she would haunt a house that she never entered, but theories state that she is attempting to maintain a connection to her beloved family. There are stories of seeing her ghost around the property or walking down by Martha's Lake, which is aptly named for her.
If only someone would name a lake for me.
I know.
No wonder she came to the area to haunt it.
I know. The other well-known ghost is that of Lady Mary Mitchell, who was Uniacke's oldest daughter. She was born on October 16th, 1782, and at the age of 23, she married her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Andrew Mitchell, Commander-in-Chief of the North American Station, which is a mouthful of a title. He was more than twice her age, and his first wife had died in Bermuda 2 years prior to their marriage. Sir Mitchell had 3 sons who were also in the Navy. They were married on May 3rd, 1805 at St. Paul's Church in Halifax, along with one of Mary's sisters. So it was a pretty big event for the Uniacke family.
Ooh, I think that's the haunted church. So the hauntings of this family are just spreading outwards.
They really are. So unfortunately, Sir Mitchell fell ill and took a trip to Bermuda in hopes that the warmer climate would improve his health. At this time, Mary was 7 months pregnant. Unfortunately, Sir Mitchell did arrive in Bermuda, but passed away within weeks of arriving, 6 days after the birth of his daughter. Mary gave birth to her daughter, Martha Maria, named after her mother, on February 20th, 1806. They unfortunately did not even learn about the death of Mary's husband until many months later due to limitations of communication at the time.
Oh, that's so tragic.
They didn't even fully know what was happening there. So Mary spent a lot of her time at the estate raising her daughter Martha. Her room was at the top of the stairs and to the right. Mary passed away at the age of 43 on October 25th, 1825, when her daughter was 19 years old. While she may have passed, people say she did not leave the estate behind. They say that you can see the spirit of Lady Mary playing the pianoforte in the front parlor, and often the ghost of her mother, Martha, is sitting nearby in her favorite chair and listening. People also say that they have seen the pair sitting quietly around the house or walking arm in arm by the lake. There are additionally accounts of people who have stayed in the house, prior to it being a museum as it is now, saying that they saw Lady Mitchell's ghost in the night when they were staying in her room.
Honestly, this is the sweetest haunting. Like, they're just a family that wants to spend time together.
That's the thing, it seems like they're just kind of around, and that's really nice. I mentioned there's some other ghosts around. Honestly, if you look for ghost stories on the property, you're probably going to fill out the whole Uniacke family tree there. If you go to the Uniacke Estate Museum Facebook page, there's some great stories where they just kind of have a woman telling ghost stories on there in different accounts. But you'll basically find one of like everyone in the family is apparently haunting that house, so it's pretty crowded. But this was a generational home, so they must be packed to the gills by now.
Years and years of spirits.
Exactly. There have been some reports of the ghost of Richard John Uniacke himself in the house, but also, their home in Halifax was at the corner of Sackville and Argyle Street. It said when that area was the Chronicle Herald building that his ghost could be seen in the Chronicle Herald building. But now that area is the convention center, so I'm not sure if people see Richard Uniacke's ghost in there so far. You know, maybe in the Five Guys or something.
Can you imagine just enjoying your greasy fries?
He just leans over, he's like, you know, they give you too many fries, so if you want to share some with me.
Honestly, for a hustle and bustle businessman, haunting a convention center sounds like a dream.
I mean, honestly.
Except for Fan Expo time, that might stress him out.
That might. On the estate, there is a story of 2 hikers on the trails around 11 p.m. when the park was closed. They were going to an area by the lake where people had seen ghosts before. They were about 20 feet away from a bench where someone had told them they had seen a ghost previously, when out of nowhere, a heavy rock flew by them and into the lake. They looked around, but they couldn't see what would have thrown the rock, and there was no sounds of anyone being around. They turned and ran back along the dark path, but felt that they were being followed. The story suggests that there's something paranormal going on, and I think it could be related to the ghosts. But also, I found this account on a website related to Bigfoot sightings, and it seems like people are attributing it to Bigfoot. I can't honestly say why having a rock thrown at you specifically would be a Bigfoot thing. I don't know a ton about Bigfoot.
So I have read quite a few accounts and stories where people are in the middle of the woods by themselves hiking. They haven't heard or seen anyone else on the trail. There were no other cars in the parking lot. So no evidence that anyone had arrived on the trail that morning. And then rocks appear out of nowhere like they're flying. And they're rocks that in theory would be too big for a regular human to throw. So they assume it was a Bigfoot. Is this our first East Coast Sasquatch sighting we're discussing on the podcast?
I think it is. We don't go much into Bigfoot. Maybe that's the next, maybe I need to start doing some research.
Hey, you never know.
But I think it could possibly be also a different type of paranormal thing. I will say the ghosts at the Uniacke Estate seem to be pretty harmless, but maybe they really annoyed him, and maybe my mind has combined Richard Uniacke with Angus McCaskill and said, they're just a big guy who could throw a really big rock.
Well, that's it. Just like Anna Swan apparently grew up there based on your childhood memories.
Exactly. And then, like I said before, you could really fill out the family tree with minor ghost appearances, but those seem to be more one-off or infrequent ones compared to the ghosts of Martha and Lady Mitchell there. I think we're going to need to take a trip there when the museum's fully open. I did do a little stop by the other day to grab some pictures, but It unfortunately wasn't open at the museum, so I couldn't go in and hang out.
He also might have startled a family who was on a picnic, so maybe now they're talking about their own Sasquatch sighting.
I don't think I'm that hairy, but yeah. But yeah, there are some really nice trails around there, and you can go around the lake. Like, it was a lovely day. Honestly, I think I might go back there, just do some walking, some bird watching. But yeah, really nice to check out. Just before we finish off, I'm going to do a little segment here. I prepared this one a while ago, so I'm pretty sure I haven't done it, but I apologize if I have. I'm going to do a segment I like to call Monster by Mistake, where there is a creature that is accidentally attributed the features of a monster or mythical being. And I want to talk about the barnacle goose.
I can't wait to hear about this.
I figure I've been talking about a lake a lot, so geese kind of hang out that water. The barnacle goose is a bird that has a history of unknown spawning. We now know that they go north and breed in the summer and then migrate south in the winter. But people in medieval times had some different theories. Their main theory was that the barnacle goose spawned from driftwood. It said when driftwood from fir trees was in the ocean, they would form barnacles, in particular a type of barnacle called goose barnacles, which were actually the beak forming of the goose, and they would use the sap from the wood to develop the rest of the body. It was said that they would either swim or fly off the driftwood when they were fully formed, though this was even criticized at the time as being like, are you sure about that? Despite this, there was debate over if the birds were able to be eaten during Lent and if they were kosher. Because they were like, okay, well, is this a shellfish? Is this kind of funny? We now understand that migration makes more sense than a bird forming out of driftwood. But it's interesting how the current understanding of the world has developed. And I just found that, and I'm going through folklore stuff, and I really like the story of the barnacle goose.
Evan, I love this. With these Monster by Mistake segments, you are unearthing some information that I have truly never heard before, so I love this.
I'm having a blast.
As you should.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to our Uniacke Estate Ghosts episode. You can find us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at It Came From The Maritimes. And if you have any Atlantic Canada folklore that you'd like to see covered on a future episode, you can email us at itcameFromTheMaritimes@gmail.com. We also have Twitter and Blue Sky, yes, at ICFT Maritimes. And if you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It will help people find us. And now we have a little folklore fact. This isn't anything serious, just a bit of fun that we found to finish off the episode. What's our folklore fact of this episode, Chelsea?
So our folklore fact for today is, according to Nova Scotia folklore, if you have a pig tattooed on your knee, it means you'll have safety at sea.
Well, I'm not tattooed, but I also don't go out to sea, really, so I guess I'm safe either way.
One way to stay safe at sea.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks.